Chowders are traditionally associated with New England, a region known for its seafood and potatoes. Chowders developed into important food for the people of this area, a hearty dish for a cold climate. In its earliest beginnings, chowder consisted simply of fish, onions, pork, and biscuits. The word chowder can be traced to the province of Brittany in northern France, where villagers would add their daily catch to the chaudière, or hanging pot. French settlers brought this food with them to North America in the 1600s, where it traveled from Newfoundland's fishing grounds to the Maritimes to New England. But the key element of any New England chowder today is the potato, a relatively new introduction into Western food. The potato is a domesticated plant from the Andes Mountains in South America. It was introduced to New England in the early 18th century, and a century later it found its way into the chowder pots of New England homes. Chowder was a favorite food of New England's seafaring people. Its ingredients were easy to store in a ship's hold or a New England pantry, and most of all, chowder was generally made with the catch of the day, using whatever type of fish that was in season. The late 1800s brought a new interest in the outdoors and an enjoyment of active life. The picnic was invented, and chowder parties became a New England pastime where this hearty food was the culinary focal point. But most of all, New England is a region recognized for its history of thrift and practicality. Chowder is a food that suits this lifestyle because almost anything can be tossed into the simmering pot. Here in coastal New England, fresh fish is available every day at the local market. In Portland, Maine, the fishermen sell their daily catch here at Harbor Fish. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm
Good.
here to make some chowder. What's the catch of the day today?
Well, we've got several choices, obviously, you can make for chowder. New England fish chowder calls for usually a real white fish because it blends with the milk real nice.
Right.
So I would probably say today I'd take cuss.
Take the cuss.
It's nice and white, nice and firm.
And you can see that it is a nice firm texture in there versus the cod and the white fish there. I think I need 2 pounds to make my chowder.
Okay, well, let me weigh that up for you. Just grab this. And you want the nice, big, thick, meaty parts,
right,
which I think we've got here. And I'm going to go for one nice big fillet right here, Rebecca. That's a nice piece. Put that on the scale. We've got just a hair under 2 pounds.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Now tell me, Nick, I always use the fresh fish because we're here in Maine and so I can always get it, but what about frozen fish? How would that react in the chowder?
The problems with frozen fish are two. One is a lot of frozen fish will lose their flavor. So you will get some flavor loss, and you might want to supplement your chowder with some sort of flavor, seasonings,
like
some
a fish cube
stock or some fish cubes that you can buy. And there are different grades of frozen fish. Just like anything else, there are good ones and bad ones. And
how do you know when you're buying it?
That's tough. When you're buying frozen, you can't really see it unless it's been thawed out, and even then it's kind of a guess. So I guess you've got to kind of rely on your fish dealer and past experience. If you get a real good frozen fish, it'll do real well.
In the chowder.
Yeah, in a chowder.
So Nick, tell me, how do I know that that fish doesn't have any bones in it, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, most fish are bony creatures to begin with. And when you fillet a fish, generally you're taking the meat off the central bone, but then there's always a few other bones. For example, in the cusk, let's grab a piece of cusk here and I'll show you what happens. There are what we call pin bones that run from this point right down this line all the way. And we can easily remove that. And let me show you how that's done. I'm just going to take my knife here and basically cut like that and open it up. And then I'm just going to kind of shave them off almost. Now,
when anybody buys cusk like this,
we always ask, what we do is we just say, would you like us to remove the bone for you?
Okay.
And of course, that, now I just feel for it. And that's a totally boneless piece of cusk right there.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about it from that point on. All right, I'm going to wrap up this for you, Rebecca.
Are you selling a lot of haddock to people these days? Or?
Haddock has become an expensive commodity lately, so we don't sell nearly as much as we used to. And some of the other species are taking some of the pressure off the haddock. Right. You know, the cod's still fairly plentiful despite what you read, and cusk has become more and more popular. Yeah. So there are other things that take its place.
But maybe let it come back again, huh?
That would be nice.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Rebecca.
Nick.
Nice to see you.
Nice seeing you, Nick.
All right, bye-bye.
Historically, chowders were not always made with seafood or fish. Inland, the cook may have chosen vegetables or meat such as rabbit. But in New England, we're known for our fish chowder. And now that we have our ingredients, When we come back, let's make chowder. And today it's cusk. We chose cusk at the fish market to make our New England fish chowder. Now there's some other ingredients besides the fish that are important for making a classic New England fish chowder. You begin with salt pork, then you have onions, potatoes, your cooking liquid, and you may even end up putting some oyster crackers or common crackers or pilot's crackers in your New England fish chowder. So we're ready to start making our chowder today. And we're going to render the salt pork, but if for dietary reasons or religious reasons you choose not to use salt pork, then by all means substitute it with either oil or butter. 2 tablespoons is all you need, and the butter is nicer if it's unsalted. But we're going to render this, and you can see it's 1/4 inch diced, and rendering means that you're going to cook it on low heat so that the fat will melt out, and we've done that. You can see it's beautiful, nice and crispy, nice slow heat. And these pieces are then drained on a paper towel and reserved to either stir into your chowder at the very end or to put in a bowl and let your guests sprinkle it on their chowder as they eat their chowder. So you're going to drain that. And in that fat, and you want only 2 tablespoons, and we have about 2 tablespoons there, and we're going to saute some onions. They're going to be sliced, 2 medium onions that are sliced. And here we are, nice and thin sliced. So they're going to be sauteing in the rendered fat. And the sauteing, the reason why you do this is because it's such a quick cooking of chowder. It's just basically the potatoes that cook, and there may be 10 minutes of cooking. And you want the onion to be as tender as the potato and the fish, because there's nothing more unpleasant than crunching into the onion. You have nice soft potato and a nice soft fish. So we're going to saute it on a low heat until it's translucent. So low heat because we don't want to brown the onions. White fish, white potato, and cream. We want the onions to be translucent and not brown. Now the onion is a round vegetable, and I'd like to show you how to slice it because it gives people a hard time a lot of time. So you first take off a little bit of the stem end with a nice sharp knife and a little bit of the root end. And the reason why it's just a little bit of the root end is because the root end will keep all the leaves of the onion intact, so it makes slicing and chopping easier. Now, to get the flat surface, we have a flat surface like this. However, it's not going to make it easy for us to slice. So you're going to cut through what I call the north and the south pole, or the root end and the stem end, and you're going to then peel off that top layer. And when it's sliced in half, this is the easiest time to do your peeling. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time struggling peeling off that very thin layer on the top. So there we are with our flat onion. And for slicing, if you're right-handed, your knife will be in your right hand, and the root end is going to be over here on the left. And you're going to then slice with a nice sharp knife and do as thin as you can for your chowder. And when you get down to the root end, just throw that away because it's all the leaves come together there, and it's very tough, and it will not be tender in your chowder no matter how long you cook it. So we're going to put those in with our chowder too. Now chopping, this is fun to teach people. Again, if you're right-handed, the root end is to the left. The root end is right there. You're going to take the knife and do parallel sweeps. And notice I am not going through the whole onion. And slide it through the heel of the knife to the tip of the knife. Slide it right through. And then with the tip of the knife, do perpendicular. Again, I'm not severing that root end. And then you begin to chop. So if you like chopped onions in your chowder, this is what you would do. And again, when you get down to the root end, just throw that away. So the onions are sauteing. I'm going to give them a stir. And the next ingredient will be the potato. Now we're using white potato for the chowder. 4 potatoes will be peeled and diced. And the potato, again, it's a round vegetable, but we want to get a flat surface again. So cut it this way, right in half. Make sure all the eyes have been peeled off so that you don't have any little brown spots in your chowder. And then cut some sticks. And you may have to cut it in a few other sticks because you don't want big chunks in here of potato for your chowder. Add some more. And then you'll line up all your sticks of potato and do that chopping motion that we did for the onion, which will give us diced potatoes. And they will go into our pot with the onions that have been sauteed until translucent. So now we're ready to put our potatoes in with our translucent onions. So the 4 potatoes that have been peeled and diced and our nice translucent onions. There they go. Notice we have a lot of potatoes in there. Our chowder will be thick with potatoes and fish. So there we go. Now, the next thing that's going to go in will be the liquid for cooking. And the liquid can be, if you happen to have homemade fish stock, that's the best you can possibly use. In the beginning, they might have used just water, or if they had some steamed clam juices or mussel juices. But I'm using what's called a mock fish stock today. And that consists of a third clam juice that you can buy bottled, a third white wine, and the rule for using white wine or any wine in cooking is if you wouldn't drink it, you wouldn't use it to cook with. So make sure it's a wine that you would drink, a nice dry white wine, and then a cup of water. So all three of these, and we're using them 3 cups for this chowder today, for the 4 potatoes and the 2 onions. So we raise the heat because we want to bring this to a boil, and it's cold liquid that goes in because when you have a root vegetable like a potato, it needs to have a cold liquid to slowly heat up the potato because the fibers are so dense. So bring it to a boil, then lower the heat and finish cooking your potato. Now the next ingredient is our catch of the day, which was the cusk that we chose. And we chose it because of its firmness, it'll keep its shape in the cooking, and because of the whiteness. So we want the fish to stay white. And there are a lot of white fish that are out in the market. However, they wouldn't withstand the cooking of a chowder and they would fall apart. We want the fish to definitely be fish when we have a chowder and not be a puree. So you're going to dice it up, a little bigger than the potatoes, but not so big that it would be awkward to take a spoonful of this chowder. So you cut your fish up and make sure that if there are any bones, if by some chance the fishmonger missed the bones at the fish market, make sure you remove all those bones. So this will go in when the potatoes are nice and tender, and it takes about 10 minutes for those potatoes to cook. So when they're tender, the fish goes in. Now while the fish is cooking, it takes just a few minutes. We're going to be adding at the very end some cream, about 1.5 cups of cream. Could be milk if you choose. Now, a lot of recipes will tell you, just pour it in at the end when your fish is done. I much prefer heating the cream or the milk, and the reason for this is that the fish is just cooked, the potatoes are just cooked, just to the point that I like. If I add cold milk or cold cream, what will happen is you lower the heat in your chowder, which means then you have to reheat it, which is overcooking. So if you add hot milk or cream to the hot chowder, it's ready right away and there's no more cooking. Now we're ready to add our hot cream to our chowder, and you can see that the fish has turned opaque and it's ready for the hot cream to finish it off. So let's pour it in, nice and hot, and our chowder is ready to serve. And when you're serving a chowder, it can be finished off with a little bit of chopped parsley is nice on there to give a little color to the chowder. Or we have here these wonderful pilot's crackers or common crackers. And the common cracker is an ancestor to the oyster cracker, but these are nice crunched up on top. Or you can take some of the rendered pork fat that we have and sprinkle it on. But just make sure that you don't add flour to your chowder and that it's thick with your potatoes and fish, and if you're using the oyster crackers. Now, when we come back, I'm going to share with you 2 variations on the theme of the New England fish chowder. Ingredients go into making a classic New England fish chowder, and we've learned the technique for cooking that chowder. Variations open up to us depending upon what's available at the market, what fish is fresh, and what vegetables. And I have 2 chowders that we're going to do, and the first one is a sweet potato corn chowder. We're also going to use a leek instead of an onion. And because I want to make this vegetarian and low fat, we're going to use oil instead of the rendered pork fat, and we're going to use vegetable broth and low-fat milk instead of cream. So let's first talk about the leek. This is from the onion family, and we're going to treat it a little differently because we're going to definitely remove that root end. We don't mind if all the leaves come apart because actually we want them to because it's a very dirty vegetable, so we need to clean it. Pull off those outside leaves, just pull them off and throw them away. And when you get down to where it starts to get dark green, then that's where you sever it. If you make stock, hang on to these leeks. They're great for stocks. So now, to clean it, first you need to cut this in half, lengthwise. Cut it down right through there. And then what you'll do is peel through the layers here and see if it's dirty. Even if it doesn't appear to be dirty, just rinse. See right here, you can see some dirt. You're going to rinse that off and then bring it back when it's clean and then proceed to chop. Depending on how fine you want your leek chop will depend on whether you need to slice it in half again. So for this chowder, you need 1 cup of leeks chopped, and that's what it looks like on this plate. 1 cup chopped, sauteed in the 2 tablespoons of corn oil. And then what we're going to add to it are the sweet potatoes. 2 pounds, a lot of sweet potatoes. And this is what the sweet potato looks like when it's peeled. Now, we learned with the fish chowder that the white potato found its way from South America all the way over to Europe, and then it traveled over to North America. Well, the sweet potato started from Africa. It's from the yam family and found its way to the southern colonies. Now, part of what is wonderful about a sweet potato is it will be beautiful. The color, especially the bright orange with the corn in our chowder, has a sweet flavor, but it is very nutritious. It is chocked full of beta-carotene. It's loaded with fiber, and it's low in calories. So start using sweet potatoes in your diet daily. Then the corn we're going to add, 4 cups of corn. Now, the corn can be from the can that's drained, frozen and defrosted, or if you have any leftover corn on the cob, don't give it to the raccoon. Take it right off the corn on the cob and use it. 4 cups, 2 will be whole, 2 pureed, and I pureed that in the food processor. So you're going to add both these in. It gives a nice texture. That pureed corn will give you the thickening rather than the starch. Remember, we talked about that with the fish chowder, not to thicken with flour. Thicken with your ingredients, not an extra starch. So that will go in. And then the vegetable broth. 3 cups of vegetable broth with the 2 pounds of potato and the 4 cups of corn and the cup of leek. Bring that to a boil. Again, it's the cold vegetable broth because of the sweet potato, the same principle that we found in the fish chowder. Bring it to a boil, simmer that until the potatoes are done. Then while that's simmering, we're going to heat the milk. And I'm using the canned evaporated milk. 1, because it's low fat. You find the low fat kind now. And 2, it will give a richness that cream will, but without the fat. And to that, I'm going to add a little flavoring, and I'm going to do what's called infusing. And infusing means that the flavors from our herb, and we're using fresh chives today, will impart into the cream, giving a richer flavor. So the infusion takes maybe 5 minutes. Heat the cream with your herb in it, and then let it sit. Now, if you can notice that my chives look a little white, and that's because I've dusted them with cornstarch, just a little bit of cornstarch. This will not thicken the chowder. What it does, there's an enzyme in your chive when it's fresh that reacts with the protein of your dairy product, the milk, cream, or cream cheese if you're using it, and it separates the protein so it looks curdled. So to safeguard against that with fresh chives, just dust it lightly with cornstarch. And so we're going to add that to our evaporated milk as it's heating, and stir that up in there and let it infuse, let it impart all its wonderful flavors into that evaporated milk. And then that will go in to our chowder as soon as the potatoes are cooked. So I'm going to raise the heat on this to bring it to a boil and get that to a boil, because in order to simmer it, we need to bring it to a boil and then lower it down. Now, while that's simmering and the low-fat milk is infusing, we're going to move on to the other variation, and the other variation is smoked salmon and spinach. Now, this I took from the idea of the Finn and Hattie chowder. And you can see we have beautiful baked smoked salmon there. And I chose the baked smoked salmon for this because I want chunks of the fish in there, and you can chowder. And a lot of that's because smoked salmon is very expensive, and it could really put your budget way over the edge. Now, in our pot here, we're starting off very much like the New England fish chowder, but we're using butter this time because I really want to taste that smoked salmon. So 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We'll saute the onions, 2 onions, just like our other fish chowder, and then the potatoes, 4 diced potatoes that are peeled or cooked. And we have that cooked in the 3 cups of the mock fish stock that we talked about earlier. So that's ready for me to add my spinach. And over here, look at all this beautiful spinach that's chiffonaded. And I'm going to show you chiffonade as soon as I put this in. 10 ounces. Looks like a lot, doesn't it? But if you've ever cooked with spinach, you know it's going to melt right down, and this will end up being the right amount of spinach for our chowder. So it goes in, and it's very, very quick. So there it goes, and it's going to cook. And now I'm going to show you how I made that chiffonade. So you wash your spinach. Even though you can buy the prepackaged spinach that says it's washed, go ahead and rinse it anyway. And then spin dry and remove that heavy rib that's in there. Just get rid of that. And then to chiffonade, basically what chiffonade is julienning of leaf vegetables. And you bundle that all up and then chiffonade. So if you see somebody in a recipe says you want to chiffonade some cabbage or some lettuce, you're julienning the lettuce or the cabbage, and that's a chiffonade. Okay, so I'm going to put that over there. Make room for my salmon. So this is the salmon, the baked smoked salmon. And if you find the other salmon, the other smoked salmon, if you can find it in one chunk and not sliced, it'd be perfect for this, because you want the flakes in there. You don't want little small pieces. Stir in your spinach. Now while the spinach is cooking over here, and it doesn't take very long, it sort of melts down very quickly, we're going to do another infusion. But we're going to infuse the puree of smoked salmon. And I bought little pieces. You can buy scraps of either the smoked salmon or lox is what they're called. And puree that. 2 ounces will be pureed. Now, remember I said we're using half as much smoked salmon as we would regular fish? Well, I want flavor, but I don't want the expense of 2 pounds of smoked salmon. So take 2 ounces of the pureed smoked salmon and whisk that in to your cold cream. And I'm going to use cream for this. Whisk that in and then heat it up so that you infuse the flavor, so that you get the rich, intense flavor without having to buy all that salmon. And so that will infuse, just cook the flavor right into there, and that will be added just before we add the fish. Okay, now our spinach is wilted, and we're ready to add our infused cream, the infusion of the smoked salmon puree into our chowder. It's all ready to go. Wonderful flavor of salmon in there. About 1.5 cups is all you need of the cream in here. Remember, we want this thick with ingredients. Then the salmon, at the last minute, is when you're going to add the smoked salmon. And the reason is this is already cooked. I'm just going to try to heat it up. And the more you stir this, the more it cooks, the smaller the pieces will get. So I want to wait till the last minute to add it. So remove the skin. There's always skin on smoked salmon, so remove that. And then you can just break it up into pieces. And remember, as you're stirring this, the pieces will get smaller, so it doesn't hurt to have large-sized pieces in here. So just break it up. And there aren't bones in here, so you don't have to worry about boning your smoked salmon. And then in it goes into your chowder. Lots of nice black pepper in here will really finish off the flavor. Our sweet potato and corn, we're all ready for our other infusion to go in, the infusion of the hot milk with the chives that have been dusted with the cornstarch. And in that goes, and we're all ready. So we've learned the techniques of chowder, fish chowder. We've learned that there are variations, and depending on where you are, what fish you can get, what vegetables, the sky's the limit.
Bakers of bread and rolls since 1903.
We hope you've enjoyed learning about the ease and versatility of making chowder. No matter what part of the country you're from, no matter what season, there are plenty of choices for making chowders. Join us next time on New England Kitchen.